So our story really kicks off with a headline from late 2025. IKEA announced it was closing its store at the Scarborough Town Centre in Toronto. Now, this wasn't just any old store. It was a big experiment for them, a new, smaller concept designed for city life. And when a global giant like IKEA shuts down a brand new spot, it naturally feels like a really bad sign for brick-and-mortar retail.
But what if this closure isn't the end of the story, but more of a plot twist? The data suggests that the whole death of physical retail idea has been, greatly exaggerated. What we're actually seeing is something way more interesting, a total transformation.
Okay, so to really get what's going on, we need to look closer at why this specific store, which seems so promising, actually failed. The answer, it turns out, reveals the new rules of the retail game.
I mean, look at how short its life was. It opened with all this fanfare in the summer of 2023, designed to be easier for city shoppers to get to. But just over 2 years later, the company pulled the plug. This wasn't some slow, lingering decline. It was a really quick, decisive failure of one specific experiment.
So that's the big question, isn't it? IKEA is one of the most powerful brands in the world. They do tons of research. So how could they get this so wrong so fast? What did they not see coming?
Well, the company's own explanation really points to a massive shift in our shopping habits. It's not that people stopped wanting IKEA stuff, it's that the way they go about getting it has just fundamentally changed.
And just look at the scale of this shift. In the year before the announcement, IKEA Canada's website had over 162 million visits. That's millions and millions of people browsing, planning, and buying right from their phones and computers. And during that exact same time, the total number of people who actually walked into any IKEA store across the entire country was just under 34 million. So the digital traffic was beating physical foot traffic by almost 5 to 1. The Scarborough store, with its smaller, curated inventory, was just caught right in the middle of this huge digital wave.
Okay, so the IKEA story shows a clear shift to online shopping. That has to mean physical retail all over Canada is in trouble, right? Well, this is where things get interesting. Let's zoom out and look at the national data from a big industry report, because the story takes a really surprising turn here. I mean, it's the logical conclusion to draw. We see all these headlines about IKEA, Hudson's Bay, other big names closing locations. You walk through a mall and see that giant empty space where an anchor store used to be. It definitely feels like a collapse. But what does the data actually say?
It turns out, against all odds, and even with all the economic uncertainty, the core health of Canadian retail, things like vacancy rates and rent in good locations, are holding up surprisingly well. It's not a story of collapse at all.
It's a story of change. While some of the old giants are stepping back, new kinds of players are quietly moving in and completely reshaping the look and feel of our shopping areas. The very nature of what retail is evolving.
And hey, this isn't just wishful thinking. This is a direct quote from the real estate giant CBRE in their 2025 market analysis. They looked at the numbers across the entire country and concluded that the sector is fundamentally healthy. So if old-school retail is fading, what is this new, resilient retail that's taking its place?
So who are these businesses that aren't just getting by but are actually doing really well in this new environment? If you look closely at what's been opening up in your own neighborhood, you probably already have a pretty good idea.
The real growth is coming from sectors that are all about services and experiences. And when you think about it, it makes perfect sense. These are things you can't easily get online. You can't get a good workout, a medical checkup, or a restaurant meal delivered to you in a cardboard box. Well, not the experience of it anyway.
And what's really fascinating is where these businesses are opening up. They are moving right into the very spaces that the old guard left behind. That giant empty department store at the mall, it turns out it's the perfect size for a big new gym or a whole collection of restaurants. People in the industry call these spaces mixed-use podiums. It's basically just the ground floor of those new condo or office towers you see everywhere, and landlords are realizing that having a great fitness studio, a medical clinic, or a popular cafe in their building is a huge plus. It attracts residents and office workers, and it creates this vibrant little ecosystem.
And it's so important to remember this isn't a one-size-fits-all trend. This transformation looks different all across the country. So in a super dense city like Vancouver, it might be about premium fitness studios taking over unique urban spaces. But in a growing city like Saskatoon, it might be more about new grocery stores and essential services for the community. Every market is adapting in its own way.
Okay, so now that we have this new understanding of the market, let's circle back to our original story about IKEA. Because the company didn't just have one urban store experiment in Toronto.
They actually had two, and their very different fates tell us everything we need to know about the new rules for success.
This comparison really says it all, doesn't it? The Scarborough store, while smaller than a traditional IKEA, was still in a classic suburban mall that you had to drive to. The downtown Toronto store, on the other hand, is even smaller, hyper-focused on small space living, and it's located right in the heart of the city with tons of foot traffic and transit access. Physical retail isn't dead, but the wrong strategy in the wrong location definitely is.
So what does all of this mean for the places we actually go to every day? What is the future of the shopping center or the main street in your community? Well, the trend lines are pointing to a pretty significant reinvention.
It's becoming a clear, predictable cycle of renewal. First, a big legacy store leaves. And yes, it looks like a disaster, but it's really an opportunity. Landlords then take that massive single-use space and they break it up. This allows a whole bunch of new, more diverse businesses to move in, maybe a clinic, a specialty grocery store, a few restaurants, a yoga studio, and suddenly the mall isn't just a place to buy things anymore, it's becoming a true community hub.
So we really need to reframe how we see these changes. That empty storefront isn't a tombstone for retail, it's actually a blank canvas. It's a sign that the market is adapting, clearing out the old models to make way for new ones that just fit better with how we live our lives today. So the next time you're out and about, I want you to look around with this new perspective. Instead of just seeing the closing sales signs, look for the construction permits. See what's replacing that old bank or department store. Is it a new restaurant? A dental clinic? A gym? Because those aren't the signs of retail's death. They're the signs of its rebirth.